All right, guys, today we're going to look at page 199 and 200. And for our lesson today, our learning target is that we can use models to compare fractions. And whenever we compare fractions, we are deciding, make this a little bit bigger. There we go. We are deciding which one is greater and what is less. So when we compare two things, we're just figuring out how they are different and how they're alike. So it's showing us study how the examples uses models to compare fractions and solve problems 1 through 8. So here we have two rectangles that are the same size. If you make 8 equal parts, partition that rectangle, and make 4 equal parts, the one with 4 equal parts, each part is bigger. The part with 8 equal parts, each part is smaller. So if we shade in 1/8 and 1/4, we see that 1/8 is less than 1/4. All right, so for number 1, we're going to write the fraction for the shaded part, and then we're going to circle the fraction that is greater. Remember, greater means more. So here I have 2 parts shaded out of 3 parts total. So my fraction is 2/3. And then for this rectangle, I have 1 part shaded, that's my numerator, out of 3 parts total. So I have 2/3 and 1/3. And it said circle the fraction that is greater. Well, 2/3 is greater than 1/3. And if I wanted to use symbols, it did not ask you to do this, but if I was using my greater than less than symbols, I would say that 2/3 is greater than 1/3. Okay? Number 2. This time I have 2 hexagons. I know they're a hexagon because it has 6 sides. Let's see what we have shaded. 1, 2, 3 parts shaded out of 4, 5, 6 parts total. So that makes my fraction 3/6. Now look at the second hexagon. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 parts shaded. So that's my numerator out of 5, 6 parts total. So I read this problem as 3/6 and 4/6. What is greater? Well, 4/6 is greater. So if I was reading this from left to right, I would need to say that 3/6 is less than 4/6. So I would write that like this. 3/6 is less than 4/6. Okay, moving on, question 3. We have 1 part shaded on our first circle out of 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 parts total. And over here we have 1 part shaded out of 2, 3, 4 parts total. So just like in our example problem, we can see that 1/8 is less than 1/4, so 1/4 is greater. That's the one that has more, and I would write it like this and say 1/8 is less than 1/4. All right, turn our papers over. Write the fraction for the shaded parts. Circle the fraction that is less. So on the front, we were focusing on what was greater, and on the back, we're focusing on what was less. I hope you read the directions and didn't continue to circle what was greater. So our first fraction, we have 1 part shaded. So that's our numerator out of 2 parts total. So our fraction is 1/2. And in our second circle, we have 1 part shaded out of 3 parts total. So we have 1/2 and 1/3. Well, which one is less? I can see that this piece is smaller than this piece. So 1/3 is less. Number 5, excuse me, I have 1 part shaded out of 2, 3, 4 parts total. And over here I have 1 part shaded out of 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 parts total. So 1/4 and 1/8 again. Well, it said which one is less? 1/8 is definitely less. This square that's shaded is smaller than this part that's shaded. Question 6. 1, 2, 3, 4 parts shaded, so that's my numerator, out of 5, 6, 7, 8 parts total. So my fraction is 4/8. And over here I have 1, 2, 3, 4 parts shaded out of 6 parts total. So I've got 4/8 and 4/6. Well, I can see that on 4/8, the bottom is all the way shaded. And the bottom row is all the way shaded on 4/6 also, but we also have this extra piece. So I would say that 4/8 is less than 4/6. Write the fraction for the shaded rectangle. Then shade the blank rectangle to show a fraction that is less. Write the fraction. So on this one, there's going to be more than one correct answer for you guys. In our first rectangle, we can see the first thing we have to do is write the fraction. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 is our numerator out of 7, 8 total parts for our denominator. Now it says shade the blank rectangle to show the fraction that is less. Okay, there's going to be several correct answers to this. So if you shaded in 1 part, that fraction would be 1 out of 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So 1/8 is less than 6/8. Let's say you shaded 2 parts. Would that still be less? Sure would. That fraction would be 2/8. You could have shaded in 3 parts, and that would give you 3/8. I'm going to put commas between here so that you know that any of these would be correct. What if we did 4/8? That's still less than 6/8. So if you did 4/8, you're correct. And then finally, if you did 5/8, you could also be correct. Now, if you put 6/8, that would not be correct because that would be equal. If you put 7/8 or 8/8, those would not be correct because they would be more. So your answer choices are 1/8, 2/8, 3/8, 4/8, or 5. Oh, I said 8s and wrote a 6. There we go. That's better. Finally, question number 8. Write a fraction less than 1/4 that has a numerator of 1. Ooh. So I'm going to draw a model to help me with this. I prefer these rectangles because I just think they're easier to draw for me. And I know that this sheet has had you doing them side by side. I prefer to do them above each other, like one up top and one below. That helps me make sure that they're equal, and it makes it easier for me to compare when I'm drawing myself. All right, less than 1/4 and has a numerator of 1. So I want to definitely show 1/4 on this one. And you'll remember for 1/4, I do half, and then a half of this half of this half, and we're going to shade in 1 part because our numerator is 1. And I want to show a fraction that is less than 1/4. So what I would do is start with a half and do fourths. Right now I have the same thing. I have fourths, but I want something that's less than 1/4. So I need to make my boxes smaller than 1/4. And I could do that one of 2 ways. I could go through and cut each of these parts equally, or I could just come across horizontally like that. And it said it has to have a numerator of 1, so that means I can only have one part shaded. So my new fraction that I just drew is 1/8. There are other correct answers to this. There are lots of correct answers for this. So if you have something other than 1/8, I'm going to ask you to share in the comment section on your Google Classroom what you got for number 8. And then that way we can see all together um, what all the different correct answer choices are, because there are a ton that you could have got besides 1/8. All right, guys, have a great day. Don't forget to do your 20 minutes of Dreambox.